Glad to know you're still with us right here on the morning edition, Real 99.3 FM Abuja via the radio and Real Broadcasting Network on YouTube. Now, we turn attention to our first commentary this morning, taking a look at the denial of the allegations that Shehu Halima diverted 44 billion naira to a private account. Now, one of the principles of every democratic society is that justice should not only be done, it should be seen to be done. When allegations of corruption emerge against public officials, Nigerians expect investigations to be swift, thorough, and transparent. If a crime has been committed, the guilty should be prosecuted. If no wrongdoing is found, then the accused deserves to have their name cleared. But what happens when an investigation seems to stop halfway? What happens when someone loses a public office, suffers reputational damage, faces intense public scrutiny, yet years later, there is no prosecution, no official report, and no clear explanation of what investigators actually found? This is the controversy and the conversation surrounding former Chief Executive Officer of the National Social Investment Program Agency, Halima Shehu. That's where we are this morning with our first commentary.
Yes, indeed, Marian. It's always good to put closure to anything. Now, it is important to make one thing very, very clear from the outset. Halima Shehu has not been convicted of any criminal offense relating to the allegations that led to her suspension. We must state that very clearly. She maintains her innocence and has consistently denied any wrongdoing. Likewise, government authorities have not publicly announced that she has been cleared of any wrongdoing. So today, our conversation is not about declaring guilt or innocence. It's about transparency, due process, and whether Nigerians deserve answers after more than 2 years. And so to understand why this case attracted national attention, we need to understand the office Halima Shehu occupied. All right? So in October 2023, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appointed her as the Pioneer National Coordinator and Chief Executive Officer of the National Social Investment Program Agency, better known as NSIPA.
Now, the NSIPA is not just another government agency. That is the agency responsible for programs that affect millions of vulnerable Nigerians. From conditional cash transfers to Empower, the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, the agency oversees intervention programs worth hundreds of billions of naira. Now, for many poor and indigent families, these programs represent the difference between survival and hardship. So naturally, whoever oversees such enormous public funds occupies one of the most sensitive positions in government. Now, Halima Shehu came into office with a reputation as a development finance expert, having previously worked extensively on Nigeria's social investment programs under the World Bank-supported National Social Safety Nets project. But barely 10 weeks into her appointment, her career took an unexpected turn. And now, according to Halima Shehu herself, shortly after assuming office, she began discovering what she describes as serious irregularities within the agency. Weak financial controls, questionable payment processes, unauthorized financial practices, and irregular access to government accounts. Who was responsible for all of these irregularities that she had flagged? She says these discoveries were serious enough that on December 22, 2023, she formally reported them to both the EFCC and the ICPC. Now, it's important to point out that while Halima Shehu has repeatedly made this claim publicly, neither the EFCC nor the ICPC has publicly confirmed or denied receiving those reports. So one of the facts that you need to note about this case is that she is the one, it is being reported, she's the one that flagged the irregularities. And she has also repeatedly said that she was the one that made, the reports to both the EFCC and the ICPC. But none of these two agencies have come out to confirm that they indeed received those reports.
I mean, that's where we are with this matter. Then, only Days later, the story took a dramatic turn. Reports emerged alleging that approximately 44 billion naira had been moved from the NSIPA account between December 27 and December 31st of the year 2023. Media reports suggested the transfers were unauthorized. The FCC launched an investigation. Public attention intensified. And on January 2nd of 2024, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu suspended Halima Shehu from office. For many Nigerians, the conclusion appeared obvious. Another corruption scandal, another public official under investigation. But that was only the beginning of the story.
Exactly. And normally, after an investigation begins, Nigerians expect one of two outcomes. Either investigators gather sufficient evidence and proceed to court, or they conclude that there is no case and publicly say so. But the Halima Shehu case appears to have followed neither of these paths. Yes, she was interrogated by the FCC, and yes, investigations reportedly examined the movement of billions of naira. But more than 2 years down the line, there has been no publicly known criminal prosecution, no court trial, no conviction, and perhaps most significantly, no publicly released final EFCC investigation report explaining what investigators ultimately concluded. So, that absence has become one of the biggest controversies surrounding this case. Because in the absence of official information, speculation inevitably fills the vacuum and is often always very rife.
And then one would ordinarily expect that as a public official who is under investigation and scrutiny, stay out of the face of the media and all. But rather than staying quiet or disappearing from the face of the media, Halima Shehu began speaking publicly about what she says really happened. She insists she never stole government money. She says that her claim is very solid. The FCC did not recover a single kobo from her. She also argues that she wasn't the person protecting corruption. She was actually trying to expose it, that's the case here. She actually is the whistleblower who blew it out to say there are some monies that are moving in a way that is not right. According to her, nearly 14 billion naira left NSIPA accounts during her tenure without her knowledge or approval. She further alleged that unauthorized signatories had access to the agency's remitter platform and that transactions occurred outside her authority as the accounting officer. Again, these allegations made by Halima Shehu herself. She brought it to the AFCC, according to her. She told them to launch an investigation to get to know all of this. They have not been independently verified by government authorities, all of these claims. But because they raise serious questions, they have ignited public interest in the case. Recently, she wrote an open letter to President Bola Tinubu asking for one thing: release the EFCC report. I mean, there's an investigation, right? Something had happened and people have gone ahead to do investigation and investigate the matter. It's only right for you to let us know what you have found. When you talk about investigation, it's findings. You're trying to find out what has gone wrong or what is right or what it is. When you're done doing your findings, what do? You report it. You bring your report back to the presidency and let the public know what's going on, because her dismissal was also made public as well. So she's asking the presidency, release the report of this investigation by the EFCC so we know who is at fault, who is guilty. If I am, let me know. If I'm not, also let me know. If I'm not, and then who is. But then let's take you to that moment where she granted an interview on television. In a moment, we'll bring you that interview moment, or that interview clip, where she actually did say that she brought the attention of this agency, the ICPC, the EFCC, to this matter for them to do a proper investigation. And now she's calling for the report and for the release of that report. I guess we have it now. We'll just go right to that moment of the interview.
Were above me. The financial control violations were above me. I called on the EFCC chairman while I was in office. I think you're mixing two things.
Okay.
While I was in office, I called on the EFCC chairman on 21st of December 2023, before my suspension, and I handed over a letter to him stating out all this violation of financial regulations in the agency. Monies moving out of the CBN account to the destination where they were moving. There were no hearsays. I documented. I handed.
And that's the voice of Halima Shehu, where she's giving account of what happened. But one will also want to ask, at the time where she was dismissed, why didn't she come out to raise all of these concerns, right? Some of the questions to say, I guess immediately you were dismissed from office. You could have also come out to say, I guess this is happening because I raised an alarm about some discrepancy in an account, right? That I'm an officer, I'm overseeing. There are some signatures to this account that I do not even know. Why are you bringing it up now?
Well,
Just some questions to that.
Well, a very, very valid question, but one might also want to say she probably had wanted the EFCC to do their due diligence, investigate some of the concerns that she has raised. But what is most confusing is how she does raise a concern on the 22nd of December 2023, official report to the EFCC and to the ICPC. And then it is discovered that between December 27 and December 31st, 2023, that about 44 billion had been moved. Now, when you're listening to Halima Shehu, you cannot help but notice how different her account is from the public narrative that emerged early 2024. And that's why the story is, particularly controversial. We have the first one that Nigerians initially heard, billions of naira, 44 billion or thereabout, allegedly moved. And then the second one is Halima's narrative, the fact that she had discovered financial irregularities. She's the one who discovered the irregularities. She reported them. And then guess what? She becomes the subject of the investigation itself. So which narrative is true? All right? It is for the investigators and perhaps where necessary, the courts. And that's why Nigerians are asking for greater transparency. And in fact, I guess that's also the reason why Halima Shehu is in the news, to say, look, I'm the one who blew the whistle on this. I'm the one who opened these kind of worms. Can you do your due diligence and come out with a proper report to Nigerians who exactly was behind those stolen funds? Exactly. And perhaps to also clear her name.
Exactly. And you could tell from the urgency and the passion in her voice that this means a lot to her. It means a lot to Nigerians too. And perhaps the bigger issue goes beyond Halima Shehu herself. It goes beyond Halima Shehu. It goes beyond normally what she would take a look at. It is actually the basic thing, which is what comes at the, behest of all of this thing that is actually happening. If something like this happens and you really like your name, you will want the very best of things to happen to you. Should investigations involving public officials remain unresolved for years? That's a good question to ask. And should citizens simply accept allegations without knowing how they ended? Because if investigators found evidence, why hasn't there been a prosecution? That's a good question to ask. And if investigators found no evidence, why hasn't there been a public exoneration? Because accountability cuts both ways. It's like a two-edged sword. It means prosecuting the guilty, and it also means protecting innocent people from indefinite suspension. Because you see, she's going to be carrying this, what we say, this thing all over her life. The way people will be looking at her, and they'll be looking at her as someone who probably has stolen public funds. And she maintains that this is not the case.
Your thoughts are very much welcome on this matter, looking at the credibility of any anti-corruption system. Now, it does not only depends only on making arrests. It depends on completing investigations. It depends on transparency. It depends on allowing the public to understand how conclusions were reached. Whether Halima Shehu is eventually vindicated or found culpable is not for us to decide. It's for the result, the report of that investigation to decide. But after more than 2 years, Nigerians have a legitimate interest in knowing what became of one of the country's biggest corruption investigations involving an agency responsible for the welfare of millions of vulnerable Nigerians. I mean, this agency is quite very important. Remember, at the point, we had some of these rollout of funds, NPower, conditional cash transfer, national homegrown school feeding program, government enterprise and empowerment program, that's the JEEP. We had all of these being rolled out. So an agency in charge of taking care of the vulnerable Nigerians now is being investigated, and some monies are said to be missing. We need to get to the bottom of this. I'm just in the middle of also getting to the bottom of how a fake agency got into the budget. I mean, Nigerians demand and deserve to get the truth, the transparent truth at this point, because unanswered questions do not strengthen public confidence. If the Nigerian people keep asking these questions and get no answers, it makes us lose trust in the system. It weakens it. And until those questions are answered, the Halima Shehu controversy will remain more than a story about one public official. It will remain a controversy about justice, accountability, due process, and the public's right to know. Nigerian people deserve to know the truth, and the report from this investigation should be made public as well.